Welcome back to the 7th episode of the CEO Journey. Today we're joined by a quality guest. He goes by the name of Lee McQueen. Lee is a serial entrepreneur and is very profound in the business industry. Lee, how are you doing?
Good, Tom. Thanks for having me on, mate. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to our chat.
No, yeah, 100%. Well, thank you for hopping on the pod. We really appreciate it. So Lee, if you could just briefly introduce yourself, then that would be perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure how brief it can be. For those people that know me, that they know I can talk for England. But so my name's Lee McQueen. I'm the founder and CEO of a software business called Phoenix 51, which is essentially a digital assessment platform that's digitalized, centralized and virtualized people assessment globally. I'm also the founder of what was the award-winning business Raw Talent Academy, which I started 11 years ago. And I'm also the 2008 or Series 4 winner of the TV show The Apprentice, where I beat 20,000 candidates. I don't know how, I'm sure we'll get into it, to get on the show, and then of course go on 12 weeks later and win it. And I worked for Lord Sugar and his son Simon for 2.5 years, built a business called Amscreen, digital media business. But before that, I suppose my grounding, if you like, is in recruitment. So at heart, I'm a recruiter, I'm a people person, and I've spanned a 21-year career in the recruitment industry.
Wow. Well, sounds like you've been on a very interesting story, and it'd be great to get into that. But I'd love to start off these conversations by just learning about the guest story and what was your upbringing like. So who was young Lee McQueen?
Great question. A cheeky guy, a cheeky little chappy, bit tubby, I think, around the edges, to be honest. Didn't always have these fantastic good looks. But very early on, I mean, I grew up in a council house in northwest London. So my mum was a receptionist, doctor's receptionist, a very working class family. My dad, a milkman, actually. He was a milkman for 42 years, my dad. And it's interesting actually, because whenever I'm asked these sorts of questions, I always reflect back on why I work so hard now and why I've been relatively successful. I always say relatively because it's still a work in progress, but and I think it is because my parents were very hardworking grafters at the end of the day. And my dad used to wake up at 2:30 in the morning, and he'd go out in his milk round, and through thick or thin, rain or shine, he was the one that was sticking the milk bottles down. And it's a hard job, man. I used to go out with him every Saturday, so I'd have a paper round in the morning. I think by the time I got to 10 or 11, I had a paper round in the morning where you'd go out on your bike and put paper, like newspapers in, morning newspapers in people's doors. And then on a Saturday, I'd finish my round and then jump on my dad's float, and I'd go and do the money collecting with him, just to earn an extra kind of, I don't know what it was back then, 5 quid, 6 quid or whatever. I used to earn pretty decent money, Tom, to be honest. I was on about 20 quid a week. So that was quite a lot, as a youngster, 13-year-old or whatever, 14-year-old by that point. So it was good pocket money, mate, good pocket money.
Yeah, no, that's great. So would you say that there was any point during your upbringing where your passion for business actually started, or was that just more of a later thing?
You know what? I listen to so many brilliant people and brilliant podcasts like what you guys are doing now, you and Joe, and then them sorts of questions come up. And I was never that guy that kind of sold lemonade outside the front of the house or anything. I might have done actually, but I never thought of being that business person. I was the kid that went to school with high-tech trainers on when everyone else was wearing Reebok and Nike. That was me. There was always that one kid, wasn't there, that had, a second-hand rusty bike when everyone had the brand new stuff. I was the kid that had the second-hand bike. That was us. And I'm not complaining, but that was us. So from a passion for business, I didn't think I was ever good enough to do business. I didn't think I was clever enough to do business. My school life was challenging. I was the class jester. I said I was a cheeky chap. I was the guy that made it. I was a comedian bloke. I was the bloke that would sit at the back in science and burn rulers with the Bunsen burner, rather than actually sitting at the front and listening to the teacher. This is a true story that I'm about to say to you as well. A really strange thing happened. My mum come over to my house about 2 weeks ago, like recently, and she had a bag with her. And I said, what's that? What are you bringing around, Mum? She went, oh, these are your old school reports. I've been having a clear out back at home. And I was like, no way. She went, don't let your children read these, because I've got 3 girls.
Yeah.
So I let the kids run off and whatever. I started having to read through, and every single teacher from year 7, as it's called now, it used to be year 1, but year 7 all the way through to year 11, every single teacher on every single report said he's got the ability, but he just doesn't ever apply himself. Like literally, it was the same thing, Tom, the whole way through my school life. Yeah. So I was a guy that kind of got through based on my personality, a bit of a cheeky chappy, didn't really take school that seriously. And obviously my grades reflected that. So I left school with like 1 C, 2 Ds, 3 Es and an F, like terrible GCSEs. Yeah. I didn't really know what to do with myself, because a lot of my friends were going to they're going to A levels, going to university, or they were doing, BTEC nationals, as they were then called. And I couldn't even do that because I didn't even get the grade. So I did stay on in the 6th form to do a year in IT, right, to then build up to go to do 2 more years and then to maybe get to uni. Because back then, it has changed a lot now, but back then, if you didn't go to university, you were almost already cast as a failure. You were already cast as a failure. So I was like, I've done it to myself. I get it. I should have concentrated more, and I had the ability, but I didn't want to concentrate. But therefore, I didn't end up going to uni at all, because I didn't get the grades. And then my viewpoint was, by the time I hit 17 and finished my BTEC first in IT, maybe I'll go and do a BTEC national to get me to uni. Yeah. But then my parents split up and I had to move out my house. So I ended up having to rent my own house when I was 17.
Oh, God. Did you have the family pressures of, like, because obviously you didn't go to uni, were your parents on your case about it? Or were they just
no, and I think it's weird. We were literally talking about this. It's true. We were talking about it the other day, and my mum was saying that maybe she should have pressured us more. Me and my sister got an older sister. Maybe she should have put more pressure on us, because there was no pressure like that at all to do that. So that's maybe why we didn't care as much. But I think the story is an interesting one, because at 17, when my parents split up, and a lot of people that come from a broken home maybe earlier on have a later effect on in life about their parents splitting up or whatever. And I've always kind of just brushed it off, because I was 17, and it's like when you're 17, you think you're a man, you think you're already grown up, you know what you're doing. But that was probably, going back to your original question, that was probably the first time that I realized commercially, business wise, actually, what am I doing here? Because I was renting a house and I was spending, it wasn't a house, it was a studio flat, right? And it was like 500 quid a month. So I was working, and all my money that I was working for at the time was basically going on my rent and then my bills, but I wasn't getting anything back for it other than a roof over my head. So I decided to go to my bank manager and ask for a mortgage. I thought, well, I might as well buy something, and then at least I've got something that's mine. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So we had that conversation, and I put a plan together to get a mortgage. Got another job, worked 7 days a week, worked my backside off to get the money, and I got the deposit together, and I bought my first house when I was 18. And I think that for me was my first lesson in business, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Actually, if you do something different, it can actually be rewarding for you, because I got on the property ladder so early. It enabled me to continually upgrade for, as every time you move, you get a better house and so on and so forth, because I built equity up in each property that I sold. So that was probably my first lesson in business, really.
So do you regret not following the conventional route then at all, or?
Do you know what? And again, for young people watching or listening to this, I'm not advocating don't go uni. That's not what I'm about, but I don't regret it. And the reason why I don't regret it is because if it wasn't for me not going, I wouldn't have got on the property ladder that early. It would have been impossible, because I wouldn't have been working. If I hadn't got on the property ladder, I probably wouldn't be working, living in the house and owning the other houses that I currently do.
Yes.
And definitely, if I'd have gone to uni, I wouldn't have set up the business that I did set up. which has given me an amazing living over the last kind of 11 years before we set the technology company Phoenix 51 up. So I definitely don't regret it. But I also do believe, and we've just talking as we say in the green room, like before we come on live, that that practicality of you're learning at uni at the moment quite a lot of theory, and you quite like practical stuff. I'm very practical as well, so I'm pretty good at something when I get my mind to it, but I'm not very good at reading and learning and digesting. I like to go out and do stuff. So to be honest, I don't think uni would have been for me anyway.
Yeah, no, and I guess you don't want to be going through uni thinking, why am I here? It's just a waste of time because it costs a shit ton of money, and you don't want to waste those precious years of your life. So no, that's great to hear your opinion on that. And it's also clear that you've been through a lot of hardship and struggle growing up, especially with your parents splitting up at 17. That's a difficult thing to go through, and obviously you're quite, I'm guessing, quite poor. Like, one thing that I would say is that a lot of people who I talk to talk about a chip on the shoulder, and that giving them a lot of motivation to take opportunities and action, whether it be in business or other aspects. Would you say that going through that struggle and hardship gave you the chip on the shoulder to go do things?
Yeah, I mean, in short, yes. I wouldn't call it a chip. I mean, it might be, but I wouldn't call it a chip on the shoulder. I would definitely use the word motivation, desire, determination. I have 3 girls, so my eldest is 11. I've got identical twins that are 9. They're amazing, Millie, Lottie, and Lois. And I didn't want, even before my family come along, I didn't want my family to go to school in high-tech trainers. Right? Yeah. You with me? I don't want me to buy a second-hand BMX that I had to scrape all the rust off, or a second-hand bike to scrape all the rust off so that my girls could enjoy. I didn't want that. And by the way, my parents did the best they could. They were brilliant. Like, we didn't have a bad childhood at all, but we just didn't have. Like, we didn't go abroad. Back then was slightly different anyway, because a lot of people still holidayed in the UK, but we didn't go abroad for a long time. And now I go on holiday a lot, and that's I think that's a consequence of my childhood. Do we, me and my wife, spoil our children? Yeah, let's be honest about it. We do, but we put ourselves in that position through hard work, resilience, determination. We've put ourselves in that position. We've earned really well for our careers. I've been very fortunate to be able to set up 3 companies off the back of working for a big corporate organization like Capita. I worked for Capita for 8.5 years. So I've been in a fortunate position to be able to set up businesses because of what we've done in the past. But in the basic level, Tom, it comes back down to determination, motivation to go, I don't want to be like that, so I'm going to do it this way, and this is how I'm going to do it. Yeah,
so that's desire to just go out and achieve. And I think that's completely true. You always have got to be completely motivated and just understand where you're going to. I completely agree on that. So I guess a very juicy part of your career has been The Apprentice. How did that come about?
It's a good story. It's a great story. I'm glad you asked. I don't often get to talk about it anymore because it was a long time ago. It's 14 years ago, right, that I won, which is mental. Right? And another quick one for your younger viewers and listeners as well, right, without being patronising, and you get yourself as well because you're starting out now after uni. Mate, I'm telling you, time goes rapid. Before you know it, you're going to be 40. And you will not believe it now because you're young and you've got a whole life. I'm telling you, it goes so quick, man. So quick. Yeah. So 14 years, I can't believe it. But yes, so I've just referenced Capita. I had an amazing job at Capita. I was the sales and delivery manager. I was never the director at the time, but I was a sales and delivery manager at the time for Capita. It was a business division that turned over about 32 million quid. I had 30 staff working for me. Wow. And it wasn't easy. It was very difficult. It was very challenging at Capita. And they were an amazing company back then. They still are now, but they were a very good company when I worked there, around being entrepreneurial with your own business. So your own business unit, you can almost run it as your own company. It was that kind of mentality. It's really good. But I could walk into the office, Tom, and everyone knew I was. I was the kind of the life and soul, if you like, and that sort of stuff. And it was a very enjoyable place to work. And I wouldn't say I was comfortable, but I was well liked. So I knew that I could kind of get away with sticking around through thick and thin, if that makes sense. So I earned my right to stay there. So I came in one morning, and one of the team that worked for us in the public sector, Steve, his name was, he was head of public sector at the time. He printed out an application form, and he just put a post-it note on it saying, "Fill me out." And that's all it was on. It's on my desk. So I went in on my desk. What's this on my desk? So I looked at it, ripped off the post-it note, and it said apprentice application. And I was like, really? And they were just like, Lee, just fill it out. Just get it done. I was like, all right. So I filled it out. So I just filled it out. I didn't think anything of it. Really messy handwriting, probably spelling errors on it. Like, just, nothing's going to happen. Yeah. And weirdly enough, 2 weeks later, I got a phone call to say, oh, from the Apprentice, from the TV show, would like to see you for an interview. Right. And I was like, somebody on a wind up here. I didn't really think about it. And obviously put the phone down, broadcast to the office. Oh, they want to see me for an interview. It's like, whatever. Yeah. And the weird thing about the whole process is, once you start getting into it, they start telling you to shush, because they want to try and keep the apprentice candidate secret and all that sort of stuff. So the further you get in the process, like before you get on the show I'm talking about, the more you can't talk about it. 7 interviews later, and a lot more now quiet, I'm telling everyone now, I didn't get on. No, I didn't get on. But actually, it was a big birthday of mine. It was my 30th birthday. Right. And we went over to safari in the Serengeti, and I was on an open top safari, right? And I'm looking at lions, and remember blackberries. I don't know if you remember blackberries there, but I had my work blackberry, and my blackberry rung. I was like, who's phoning me? Like, why am I out in the Serengeti? And it was the Apprentice saying, we want you on the show. Like, you've beaten 20,000 candidates. You're going to be one of the 16 on the show. I was like, my word. So that was in 2007. So then you pre-film it in the autumn winter of 2007, and then it showed live from March until June in 2008. And on June the 10th, 2008, I won. Yeah, they chose, Lord Sugar chose me as the winner.
Wow. Nice. That's incredible. That is incredible.
Madness. So that's how it came about. And I think for me, I decided pretty early doors that what I was going to do is I was just going to be myself. And actually, because obviously the public don't vote, right? So it's all really subjective around Lord Sugar and Nick and Margaret at the time. That was his age. Obviously now it's Karen Tim, but Nick and Margaret was his age then. It was really subjective about them. If they wanted you to go through to the next round, go through to the next round. So I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to approach things. And going back to what we said right at the beginning, I'm quite practical. So putting me in business style task and letting me show what I can do, that was literally perfect forum for me. Yeah. That's my chance to go, right, I can do this. And luckily for me, it worked out, because I ended up winning.
Yeah, no, 100%. A burning question I have to ask is, how much of what we see is actually real?
I don't know if it's changed that much. Well, I do know. I don't think it's changed much. And a lot of it is real. Like, we had a camera in our face. I think a lot of people don't realize that you have a camera in your face all the time, like literally all the time. And what you get to see as a viewer is like an hour's worth of, the boardroom is 10 minutes. What you get to see, it's about 3 hours worth of editing. It's probably about 10 hours worth of videoing. Do you see what I mean? Just to get it down to the footage. So we basically had a camera in our face the whole time. And you start to forget that the camera's there, and you start to just do the whole thing. There was times, looking back, never when I was there, but looking back, there was times where I thought to myself, actually, was that task set up? Was that set up to do that? And when I watch it back even now, like, I know all the Apprentice alumni, like the winners, they're our alumni, so I'm friendly with them and so on and so forth. And when you look back and you have conversations, you do think, actually, was that task set up? Was they told to do that? But at the time doing the task, you don't think that at all. You just crack on. You just do that. The negotiations, the live selling, the ability to go and find products that you have no idea how to start. I mean, we went to Marrakesh, in one of our series to go and find these, these items. And it was incredible to, to try and get the language barrier and to find these and then to negotiate with them. I didn't think it was fake. I thought it was real. And that's what I think is a really good achievement.
Did you feel completely out of your comfort zone on The Apprentice?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I vividly remember this, but there was a time where when you're first chosen as project manager, that was a time where I thought, right, I've got to either stick to my values, stick to my core beliefs and values, or try and, be somebody that I'm not. And that's why I said, like, I'm just going to be myself. And so he was definitely outside your comfort zone, Tom. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's actually, if you think about it, a very unique experience. I mean, he was at Ogilvy. Like, we're in the studios at Ogilvy, like designing like products and stuff. Like,
it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it was an amazing experience, and one that I fondly look back on. It gave me the courage and the desire to set my own company up. And I generally don't, I mean, I was earning very well and I had a very good job. And I actually went back to Capita for a time, and I was the managing director of that division. So I ran that company for a time. And so I was, again, earning very good money, but I don't think I'd have set my own company up if it wasn't for my experience on The Apprentice.
Wow. So what was the key thing that you learned from being on The Apprentice then?
That you can do stuff. And actually, no matter how hard something gets, you can overcome it. You can find a solution. Like, you have the right people around you, or you have the right products or services that you can actually make money out of nothing. You can start with nothing and then make some money out off the back of it. You can spend money on something and then double it, triple it, quadruple it within a couple of days. And I found that was quite fascinating. I felt that relationships taught me a lot. I've always been pretty good at building relationships with people, but actually to be able to build relationships with, in a short space of time, with very, very different people. I mean, we had people that were barristers, we had people that have been at uni, obviously I haven't been at uni, they've got that barrier there. We had people that were very posh and very, Rafe was my roommate, love him to pieces, still do today, like we still talk and everything now. But people from very diverse, different backgrounds shoved in a house and shoved on a task together, and you've got to deliver, you've got to get that done, and you've got to do it rapidly or she could be fired. So I very quickly realized that, and not a lot of people realize this, even when we're screaming at the TV as viewers, going, why have you done that? I quickly realized that actually the way to win the show is to build relationships with everybody and make them work for you in the way that you need them to work for you, not argue and bicker and row with each other. Might not make good TV, but that's how you go and win the show, and obviously it works.
And you've talked about having that likable personality from a young age, and you've obviously still got that now. What would you say that was like critical for your success in the show, and would you say that stood you apart from all the other contestants?
Maybe not all the other contestants, but I think I stood out for that. I think that, some of my madness stuff, I mean, I did a reverse pterodactyl on the show, which is like a dinosaur impression, just making people fun. Now, I've always felt that business doesn't have to be too serious. Like, obviously business is a serious thing, I get that, but also I'm long in the tooth now, like I'm an old fart now, so I can say this sort of stuff, but actually you want to have fun while you're doing stuff. Like, business doesn't have to always be really serious and really straight faced. You want to have a bit of fun, and you want to do that together, and I've always found that motivating teams, motivating people, building relationships is on that. You want people to want to be around you. And if you like me and you want to be around me and you think, wow, this guy's, he's good, he leads by example, can be serious when he needs to be, he's successful, but he's also fun. What's there not to like? And then you come with me on my journey. And now I've got Tom. I know that Tom's going to be giving me 100%, 110% because of them key things. And the most important thing for not you personally, but for for somebody in my team, is that they're learning and they're developing and they're getting better themselves. And if I can do that and I can do it in a fun way, what's not to like?
No, 100%. Another key question is, how did it feel from going from normality to, I think at one stage I looked up and it was approximately 8.9 million screens, which is just massive. How did it feel actually going from normality to that, I guess, amount of press on you?
I think that's, you know, I'm holding it together today because it's a happy podcast. But I think that's my biggest, the thing that I miss the most. I still think today that I was born to do that stuff. That's what I think. And whether or not anyone watching this or listening to this is gonna, you know, laugh at that, that's my belief. So it was phenomenal. When I didn't go into the Apprentice to become famous, I didn't. I went into to learn about myself and certain things, and hopefully to get better out the back of it. And clearly I won, and then I learned from Lord Sugar and his son Simon and built a business from scratch, and that was amazing. But when the fame comes and goes pretty quickly, and when it came rapid. I mean, we had paparazzi outside our house. They were following us with motorbikes. This was mental. This was literally ridiculous. I mean, I'm talking about a scenario where most people watching this now and listening to this now are like, who is this guy? Like that, they don't even know my name. And that's fair enough. But for a period of time, I couldn't walk down the street without somebody going, that's what I'm talking about, which was the catchphrase on the show, or, oh, that's Lee McQueen. Like, you know, I couldn't walk down the street without that. I'll give you a couple of examples. We went to Ascot to go to the horse racing.
Yeah.
It was probably it must have been a couple of weeks after actually that I won. So it was very, very fresh. And we got on the train. I was with my girlfriend at the time. She's now my wife, right? So I was with my wife and my core friends and their wives and girlfriends, right? So there was I think there was 6 of us or 8 of us. And we got on the train and we was going into a thing, and I was absolutely mobbed. Like, people wouldn't leave me alone. I was loving it. And I was walking into Ascot, people are asking for photos. Oh my God, it's Lee McQueen, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I was just like, my word, this is incredible. Yeah. And then I get a tap on the shoulder, and I turn around, it's Alan Brazil. So I don't know if you know Alan Brazil, but Alan Brazil is a sports reporter, presenter on TalkSport. Like, he used to be a professional footballer. He used to play for Man United. He used to play for Tottenham. And I listened to TalkSport at the time, all the time. So I knew who he was, and he was, you know, a big thing. He turned around and he's like, oh, Lee, I really enjoyed watching you. You're amazing. And I was like, geez, that's like Alan Brazil, and he knows who I am. That's crazy. He went, give me your number, and I'll see if I can get you in our box in the horse racing. So I was like, okay, weird. So I gave him my number. I thought, he's never going to phone me. Yeah. 5 minutes later, he phones me up, says, I'll get all of you lot in our box, come up. And we had a double box on the finishing line at Ascot, and that was all because I won the Apprentice. And so it was incredible. I used to be able to queue jump in clubs. I mean, this sort of stuff, and none of that stuff. I mean, I booked a holiday once in the Bahamas. I booked a holiday in the Bahamas, right? And as I phoned up, went through the booking. Lady was chatting to me, blah blah, and she said, "Oh, can I take your name?" I was like, "Yeah, Lee McQueen." She went, "I knew it." I said, "What do you mean?" And this, by the way, I won in 2008. This was in 2009. This was over a year after I won. And she went, "I knew it." I said, "What do you mean you knew it?" She went, "You're Lee McQueen, aren't you? Apprentice winner." I said, "Yeah, I am." Like, and she recognised just from my voice. And I was like, "Oh," and we had a chat and whatever. And she went, "Oh, I'll put a little note down on your booking. You know, there'll be a little surprise for you when you get to on your holiday." I was like, "Okay, amazing, thanks." So we go on holiday, right, to the Bahamas, me and the girlfriend, which was going to be my wife, because I was going to propose to her in the Bahamas, right? So we get to the Bahamas, we get to the resort that we're staying at, and these little envelopes come out, like couple. Oh, Mr. McQueen. Oh yeah. Hang on a minute. Go this way. And she'd upgraded our room to a full 2-week butler service, just because my voice. She recognised my voice. Yeah. We didn't pay for that. It was just a free upgrade. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So it was, Tom, absolutely crazy. It was crazy, and I loved that. I love them little perks. I love that sort of stuff. The thing is, what no one does, and they don't do it even now, the fame bit, you got no training for that. You don't know how to handle them certain things, and then it gets turned off really quickly, because once your 5 minutes is up, it's game over. everyone's moving on to the next one, or the next year comes along, and you're thinking, hang on, I used to be recognised in this restaurant, and now I'm not. And that sounds really egotistical, and it is, but that's quite hard to deal with. And then, all of a sudden, year 2, year 3, by the time year 5 comes along, you're just a normal geezer again.
No, yeah, I can imagine. Were there any negative repercussions then to the limelight?
Do you know what? I must be really lucky coming back to me being a young, cheeky chappy, because there wasn't for me. I was pretty lucky in that sense. The only time I ever got grief was when football. Obviously, you can see on my show, I follow Tottenham Hotspur. I'm a season ticket on Spurs. I co-host a podcast called Last One on Spurs. So if there's any Spurs fans watching or listening to this podcast, go and check us out.
I'll put that in the description as well, Lee. Yeah,
for sure. Fantastic. But I remember going to an away game in Bolton Wanderers, and I got absolutely battered on the, not beaten up, but proper verbal abuse. You call it that. Proper verbal abuse at me on the trains and stuff like that. And that's the only real time. Most people are pretty happy to see you, and that sort of stuff, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. So after winning the Apprentice in 2008, you then became development director at Amscreen, didn't you? And you played a vital role there. And I think Alan Sugar even said that. And I know that you're working closely with Simon Sugar, Alan's eldest brother, who was CEO of Amscreen.
Simon, his name's Simon, Simon Sugar. So basically, back in the day when I won the Apprentice, you won a job, right? 100 grand a year salary, and you won a job. And that was basically what it was. Now it's obviously different. It's 250 grand investment, and he owns 50% of your business, but it's your company. So it's slightly different. But I got the best of both worlds, because we did actually start, as you said, a business, but it wasn't my business. It wasn't my business plan, but it was a business called Amscreen, digital media business. And I remember my first day, I walked into the office, and Lord Sugar was in the office in his boardroom. And I went in there, and Simon, his son, was already in there. First time I'd met him. We had a conversation, and Lord Sugar just said, look, we're setting up a business called Amscreen. Simon's the CEO, and we want you to be the development director, and we want you to go out and drive new business and build this business from the ground up. And I thought, wow, what a fantastic opportunity. Bearing in mind, remember what I said earlier, like I wanted to be able to learn, I wanted to be able to have the courage to be able to set a business up, and we did it from scratch with Simon, who's amazing, and Lord Sugar, who's also amazing, and got loads of money behind him. So we didn't have to worry about them new business struggles that most startups have to worry about. How am I going to get this business off the ground? I've got no cash. We didn't need to worry about that. So I got a phenomenal grounding in how to set a company up from scratch, and how to acquire we acquired a couple of companies. We signed a £5 million contract with BP within the first 7 months of work, of setting the company up. Then we took the petrol station market by storm. So BP signed, and then we had Shell, Esso, Total all sign up for the petrol station market. So very quickly, Amscreen become the market leader in the petrol station convenience digital marketing space. And it was strange, Tom, because back then, I know now you look everywhere, everything's digital, all the billboards, everything you see is digital. But back then, no one was really doing that. Definitely not in the petrol station marketplace. And even on the trains, you go into the tube now, or whatever, bus stations, it's all digital. And that's what Amscreen are doing now. They're doing all that sort of stuff. And that started back in that boardroom back in 2008.
Yeah, no. What was it like working closely with Simon Sugar then?
Well, he was amazing. He's a good friend of mine now. Actually, he's a good guy.
So you're still in touch with him then?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Simon. What the big myth actually is that you go and get stuck in a broom cupboard somewhere when you're working for Lord Sugar. That's not the case. We started a business together, so I saw Lord Sugar probably every day for about 9 months. Every single day at night. And then as the business grew and it got more established, then obviously you start pushing out your roles and you don't see him as much, and you just go to board meetings and stuff like that. So, but I saw Simon every day as well, and we worked together. We had our technology depot, if you like, or engineering hub was up in Bolton.
Right.
So we used to travel up and down from Essex to Bolton quite often. and it's still up there. They just built an eco-friendly, state-of-the-art manufacturing hub up in Bolton, Amscreen. So, like I say, still in touch with them, still following some really good stuff.
Did you have equity in the company, or was it just a director position?
No, and that again, I don't normally say this publicly, to be fair, but that was one of the main reasons why I left, because I knew that it was never going to be my company, and rightly so. Right? I didn't start; it wasn't my idea. I didn't put any funding behind it, so I'm not moaning. But I wanted my own thing, and that was one of the reasons why I left. You know, I felt after 2.5 years, I'd got the ground in, I got the foundation, I'd done what they needed me to do, and I got what I needed to out of it. And you know, at the end of the day, Lord Sugar, you sometimes read in the press that, oh, people always leave him, but the nature of what he's trying to do is create new British entrepreneurs, right? Or new entrepreneurs that are going to work in Britain, right? So for me, that was what I did, and that's what he created, because I went straight out and I left. I can't remember my dates, but I left probably July time, August time, and then straight away I set up my company, a consultancy business, and then 5 months later I set up Raw Talent, which is my recruitment business, and 8 years after that, 9 years after that, set up Phoenix 51.
Yeah, no. Another question then, because you've touched on you striking a big deal with BP, and I think I looked up, did it get the product into, was it 335 BP owned sites, which is just massive, and I'm sure there was other strings attached. How did it feel striking such a big deal?
I think the first thing is that it was a team effort for sure. We did a lot of them. My job as development director was to actually go out and knock down doors and start introductions. So I think the certainly first 3-4 months of my role I was literally just like meeting people every day. Like, do you want to meet me? Do you want to meet? And it was easier because I just won. So every time I'd phone someone, like, oh, hi, Tom, it's Lee McQueen. Oh, all right, you won the Apprentice? Yeah, can I meet you? And then it was about chatting things through and developing them relationships and driving our awareness of we're Amscreen, this is what we are, this is what we're doing, and getting that out there. And one of them calls was BP. BP saw me on the Your Hired show, and because of us, our involvement in the Apprentice and so on and so forth, we got in touch with them. And I think we must have had, I mean, there was Sean involved, the COO, there was obviously Simon, there's obviously me, there was a big Stuart, I think, as well, one of the other sales guys. It was quite a big team involved. Donovan was doing all the bid work. We must have had at least 10, 12 meetings with BP, like ongoing over a period of time to get that over the line. But it was very rewarding, very satisfying, because they had an incumbent supplier. So they had somebody that was already delivering them digital media.
Right.
And then we came in as the new kids on the block, essentially. And not only did we win that contract, but we took some contracts away from our main competitor. So it was very satisfying. It's like Tottenham beating Arsenal, right, in the North London derby. Not only did you get 3 points, but you beat your biggest rival. So it's kind of like it's quite satisfying. So yeah, that was a big that was a big deal, a fantastic deal to be part of. But I also think that off the back of that came all them other deals that the company managed to grow and bring on, and that's where they become a market leader in that sector.
No, that's great. And you sort of delved onto how you actually went about striking that deal, which was going to be my next question. But so from Amscreen, you then talked about that you set up your consultancy business, and then obviously Raw Talent Academy, which is the big one. So just on Raw Talent Academy, what challenges did you actually face setting up a business for the first time?
Well, money. So I had 25 grand in the bank, and that's what started the company. I had another challenge, which my eldest daughter, I mentioned earlier, Millie, who's 11, she was literally just being born. So me and my wife had a newborn baby coming in, and I've decided to, you know what, I'm leaving Amscreen, I'm going to start my own company. It's like, what? Don't do things by halves, Lee, just crack on and get it done. So there was a couple of challenges like that. The biggest challenge from a business point of view, without a doubt, was case studies. When you start your first business, right, you have no case studies. You've never done it before, right? So I'm basically talking to people or meeting with people, and we've never done the raw talent model before. So raw talent was born out of frustration of people hiring based on a piece of paper. Now, I just don't get it. I don't get it to this day, and it's a massive passion of ours in Phoenix, as well as it was with raw talent. And what was happening back then is organizations would look at grad schemes and grad only schemes. And don't forget, apprenticeships now are much more sexy. But back then they weren't that sexy. People weren't really taking them on, and apprenticeships was all about, you know, being an electrician or a plumber or a chippy, a carpenter. They weren't really sexy about digital marketing, you know, sales, business. I mean, you could do apprenticeship in basically anything now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So you had to be a graduate, or your people putting grad schemes, and I couldn't understand, Tom, why organizations around the world would have a talent pool this big, and then shrink it just because you had to have a degree. I didn't get it.
I completely agree.
And most people that I worked with through Capita, through, you know, brilliant people, Lord Trugby himself, of course, you know, all the people are brilliant people at Capita that I worked with. Lots of them, not all of them, but lots of them didn't have degrees. But what they had was the same characteristics that I talked about at the beginning of this podcast, which was motivation, resilience, desire, work ethic. And they are the things that I was like, right, so that's what I want to showcase. So I started Raw Talent, and I said, look, we're going to rip up the CV. I'm not interested in a piece of paper. I'm going to rip it up. There's another story to that as well. But we're going to rip up the CV, and we're going to hire based on behavior and competency. So who is Tom? Who is Joe? Who is Lee? Who is Amanda? Right? We want to know who you are. Do you play sport? Are you good at team stuff? You know, are you individual? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Do you want to talk to people? Are you good at relationships? I want to see you in action. And all my learning from what I knew that I'd done well at up until that point, and my experience on The Apprentice. Think about The Apprentice, a giant assessment center. Every single week they're watching, they're looking, they're seeing, is he good enough? Is she good enough? Can she do this? So what I did is condensed all of that into a recruitment company. And I said, we're going to rip up the CV, and our offering is we're going to run assessment centers for clients that want the right people for the right organization. And that's what we did. And the biggest challenge was we'd never done it before. So people thought I was crazy. I'd get on my passion rant that I've just done to you and your viewers and listeners, right? And they'd be like, who's this guy? This guy's crazy. Like, of course you need to CV. Of course you need to have a look at people. Yeah. But when you start to sit down and explain the fundamentals or work it through with them, they start realizing, do you know what, you're right. Like, you don't need a degree, or you don't need to be a male, or you don't need to be a female. You need to just be good at the behaviors and competencies of that role. And that's what we started to do, and that's where it started to build from.
No, because I completely agree with that. Because like back home, I've got friends who, you know, the majority of them don't actually go to university, and they're all taking different paths. And that's partly due to the fact that they haven't performed well in school. And that doesn't mean to say that they're not bright, or that they don't have good characteristics suitable for, you know, high profile jobs and business, etc. And I feel like they hold themselves back because they follow what the norm tells you to do. And so I completely, you know, share the vision with you on that. But obviously it's quite an unconventional thing to do. So how did you get people to follow the same vision?
I think it's that passion. Again, if I'm honest, that cheeky, chappy part has played a bit of that. The ability to be able to convince people, not pull the wool over people's eyes, convincing, but convincing them with statistics, convincing them with data, convincing them with facts that actually go and have a look at some of the amazing people. Look, if you want to become a doctor, of course you need a degree, right? There's certain things, there's certain jobs in the world that you need a degree for. But where we started the business, Tom, was in sales. And sales, you do not need to have a degree in sales. I don't even think you can do a degree in sales. You might be able to now, I don't know. But certainly back then you couldn't. Yeah, exactly, right? So, you know, there's people that totally think that having a degree means that you're going to get a better individual, going to get a person. That's not necessarily the case. You're just going to get a different type of individual. Having a university degree gives you certain things. You have to work hard to get a degree in uni. You have to study. You have to conform to certain things. You do get life experience with going out and living away and all of them things. You get all of that stuff that you might not with a degree. But the people that are working when you're in uni and you're studying whatever and you're doing bits and bobs to make ends meet, there's other people that are working every single day. And what they're getting is they're getting work experience and life experience and all them things. So when it comes to, you might end up in 20 years time, both executives of an organization or both running your companies, whatever it might be. It's just a different journey. I was convincing people that actually, if everybody is fishing in the same graduate pool, there's a war on talent. Whereas actually what you could do is you could fish in the wider pool. And if you take graduates on, that's cool. But if you take one graduate and one non-graduate, that's even cooler, because this is a diversity of mind and a diversity of thinking. And this was like I say, this was back in 2011. People weren't talking about this stuff then. They weren't thinking about diversity like everybody thinks of now. So you can see I'm passionate about the subject. This is why I think I managed to get the business off the ground.
So would you say having that passion about the thing that you're doing is critical for its success then?
100%. I think you've got to be passionate. You've got to believe. You've got to believe in what you're doing. Like, regardless if it's your own business or not, if you're going to sales, you've got to be able to sell. If you want me to sell this pen, I've got to believe that this pen is worth selling, right? Or a bottle of water. You know, it's fundamental. So you've got to believe. You've got to, and if you believe and you know your subject matter, so knowledge. So people will talk to you about knowledge is power. And I remember going into a part of, when I went back to Capita, actually, the business unit that I ended up being MD of, it was failing. It weren't doing very well. And my job was to go in and reinvigorate it, reignite it, get it back to former glory days, if you like. And I remember thinking, people don't know about knowledge. They're not subject matter experts in what they're doing. They're just doing stuff, and they need to be doing specifics. So we changed that, and we used the mantra, knowledge is power. So if you've got knowledge, if you've got passion, if you've got belief, you then can be really good at delivering what it is. Because that's the key thing as well, is we've made mistakes. We've made mistakes at Raw Talent. We've made mistakes at Amscreen. We've made mistakes at Phoenix 51. Of course we have. We're human, right? We make mistakes. But you need to deliver. You need to have that passion to be able to get people to come on a journey with you. But then you've got to follow it through. You've got to deliver what you're saying. So it can't just be a good sales pitch or a good story. It needs to be a good product and a good service. And that's the most important thing.
You've got to be able to deliver at the end of the day, haven't you?
100%, mate.
Where's Raw Talent Academy at today?
It's a bit sad, actually, with Raw Talent, because it's been such a catalyst for what we do today. If it wasn't for Raw Talent, Phoenix 51 wouldn't have been born. We called Phoenix 51, by the way, because it was born out of another business. It was born out of Raw Talent. So the story is that after about 8 years of trading in Raw Talent, we were getting some really good customers, some really good global businesses as well, working globally. And the data that we were finding for these customers was excellent. Behaviors, competencies, but it was all done on paper. Nothing was digitalized. And therefore, you couldn't really reuse that data. You couldn't really use it again. So what I decided to do for my sins, hopefully it will work out, I'm sure it will, but I invested a load of money in building our own software platform that would enable us to digitalize the assessment process. So now what Raw Talent became was not only a recruitment assessment recruitment business, but it now had this piece of technology that was adding value to our clients even further. And one of our clients, MediaCom, which is one of the large media agencies in the UK, they asked us if they could buy the technology without the recruitment bit. Just could we buy it? And I sort of said yes, ran back to the office going, holy moly, holy shit, like, how am I going to do this? But that gave us the idea to pull the technology out of Raw Talent and set it up as a standalone SaaS software business. And that's what we did. And we launched Phoenix 51 2 years ago this month. So it's just our birthday 2 years ago, global pandemic. And the whole idea, Tom, was that raw talent, with the revenues going through raw talent, was going to bankroll Phoenix 51. But obviously COVID hit, and COVID destroyed loads of businesses. It destroyed our revenue in raw talent, and literally I lost 90% of our revenue within about 6 days. And that was really tough to recover from, but we did. And so it's a sad story in the sense of raw talent is kind of just ticking along and being there. But out of that came Phoenix, and Phoenix is the game changer, because it is a technology that is virtualized, digitalized, and centralized people assessment across the globe. And we've got some amazing customers already on the platform. And it's given us that licensing SaaS model that enables us to develop technology, get it even better, roll out new updates to our customers, which enables them to get even better. They renew, and then we go again. And our technology is it's where it's at, man. It's where it's going to happen over the next couple of years for sure.
So is it your ability to pivot that actually spawned Phoenix 51 then?
Yeah, I mean, I probably couldn't put it better myself. I think it's an excellent choice of word. Pivot, because again, I'll let you into a little personal secret as well, right? So my business partner, co-founder of Phoenix, my business partner, Chris Wimshurst, he's a qualified business psychologist, right? So I built raw talent on my own, and I had a brilliant team around me, like Heather and Ash and Nick and mate, too many to mention, right? I've got raw talent up to about 35 people, wow. 2.5 million quid. We were doing really well. And I couldn't have done it on my own, but it was my business. I didn't know no investors, no shareholders. It was just mine from the ground up. And when the idea of Phoenix came around with the technology, and I invested all that money in it, it was our internal platform then. I didn't want to build a standalone business on my own. I wanted to do it with someone else. It's like, a team effort. I wanted to do it as a team. I wanted to share the spoils, if you like. So I knew Chris from actually used to be a client of ours at Morgan Hunt. So I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, look, Chris, I need somebody like you with the science, with the business psychology to come in and help me develop this platform even further.
Yeah.
So luckily for me, he said yes. And when COVID hit, so we had our plan. Raw Talent was going to bankroll a technology business, and we were going to slowly integrate the technology into a business itself, and we're going to crack on. COVID hit March, from March the 9th to March the 15th, 90% revenue gone. And I remember sitting here, so I was sitting in I'm in my home office, and he was on the other end of this Zoom call, and we just looked at each other and said, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? Because our technology was all about people assessment. So it was about gathering masses of people together and doing assessments. Well, obviously, that's never going to happen because of COVID. So it was a nightmare. So we decided to pivot, as to a usual word, and we embedded video technology into the platform, and that was the game changer. It meant that businesses around the world could start doing virtual assessment centers, which no one was doing before. No one was doing it before COVID, and that was only 2020 when COVID hit. No one was doing it. They were all doing assessments in person. So what we ended up doing was starting to pivot and change that virtualization, virtual assessments. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of video technology interviewing companies out there. That's different to what we do and how we do assessment. So that pivot and that ability to, I remember I could have stuck my head in my porridge that morning. I had my porridge on my desk and I'm eating it with Chris, and I was like, what should we do? Should we sack it off? Should we just forget it because COVID's done us, or should we plow on and see what we can do? And obviously we chose the latter, and 2 years later we're here with our business.
But I guess that's your determination, isn't it, and motivation coming through. And did you find that going through that really tough part during that time forced you to innovate?
Yeah, I think so. The innovation side of things, again, if we didn't innovate to put the video tech in, or to embed video technology into the platform, our business wouldn't have taken off at all. I think the most exciting part of all of that innovation, and when you do kind of step outside your comfort zone, which we learned to do in the Apprentice, or I learned to do in the Apprentice. You step outside. When you start thinking about what do your customers need, or what do your clients want, you start realizing that you're building stuff for them, not building stuff for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, a lot of businesses build stuff and then try and sell it. And you know, that's the tail wagging the dog, right? You've got to go out and find out, what do you want? Tom, what is it you want? Joe, what is it you want? Lee, what is it you want? Okay, I'll build that. So to do them, to innovate with that, to understand, right, what does the world want now? You want virtualization. You need to be able to do Teams and Zoom. So why don't we put our own video technology in? Now, when you start interviewing people and you can't see them face to face, you can do it via our platform, and you can start scoring them, and you can start writing notes with them, and you're interacting with exactly how we are today now on this on Zoom. But we're actually doing it as we're interviewing somebody, and we're scoring them. We're getting the data points that we need, and that's what we built, and that's what Phoenix 51 essentially is.
No, 100%. And you've talked about you having that amazing team with you. How critical is it to have that awesome team that you can rely on and grow the business with?
It's absolutely fundamental. Like, the biggest thing that you need, and actually sometimes, I'm not going to lie, because you got me on here, you haven't got Phoenix on here, you got me on here. Sometimes it's a frustration if you don't get it right. And like I say, we make mistakes. Sometimes we hire the wrong people. Sometimes, you know, we hire the right people more often than not, because we use Phoenix, and it gives us the data points that we know they're going to be good for our business and for our clients' business. But you still make mistakes. People make mistakes. Oh, let's take a punt on Fiona. Fiona's not right. She doesn't really want to work here. Or one of the key things about beliefs and behaviors and competencies, if I can put it into context, is, you know, earlier I was on my passion rant about ripping up a CV, and we think it's wrong to hire on a CV. If we were then to hire somebody into our business that fundamentally believed that the best way to hire was on CVs, that hire is not going to work out for our business, because fundamentally our values and our beliefs are completely different. And that's what Phoenix does. It matches the fundamental beliefs and values, right? That's what it essentially does. So, but we still make mistakes. We make wrong decisions. We buy things that maybe we shouldn't buy. One of them is a good example in terms of learning, is when people start to make profit and decent profits for the first time, they want to go out and buy a big office, or they want to go out because it's something of them to go, yes, I've done it, look, my name's above the door type thing. But my advice would be, sweat what you've got, sweat the asset, bring people into the back room that you've got, and like sweat it out before, because once you start signing big costs that you have to carry, that's when pressure starts, if you haven't got the fundamentals of your business correct.
Yeah, and I noticed that G Cloud, which is the company's product, isn't it, has been awarded a government supply status, which is obviously pretty big. What was that process like?
So this is all learning, right? So we've got one of our investors, guy called James, is absolutely incredible. He helped us with the writing of a bid. So basically, G Cloud is a government framework, and you can only sell software into government departments if you get on this framework. So it's quite a big deal. You're all right. It's quite a big deal for us. So what that essentially means is that without us being on G Cloud, we couldn't sell into government departments. So we couldn't sell into NHS, or we couldn't sell into any central government or DH or whatever it is, right? Education. So to get onto there relatively early in starting our business was brilliant. The process itself was quite. It's almost like you're asking questions, but it's getting you to think about what we do, how we do it, how can we help, what area we want to help with, and it's them sorts of things that, like a bid process that Chris and I, to be fair, had got limited experience in. So again, moral of the story, bring good people in to help you do that. If you don't know how to do it, bring somebody in that does know and get it done properly. Don't cut corners.
And how has that impacted the finances and performances of the company then?
That specifically, not so much, to be honest, because we haven't really sold into the government departments. Again, this was at a time when COVID hit, so it wasn't that applicable for us. We have just put another application into to renew, which would be G Cloud 13 rather than G Cloud 12,
Right.
and we'll find out how that works. We'll find out if we've got back on it again in November. But what it does is it opens up a landscape for us to be able to go and sell into. That's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah, and I also know that you've talked about it previously with Raw Talent Academy, that you've gained contracts with, you know, some big names out there such as ICAP, Infinity, and is it Essence? Infinity Group and Essence.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's just to name a few, and I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, our biggest clients at the moment are the likes of SMBC, which is the largest Japanese bank on the planet.
Oh wow.
Telefonica Tech, who are the cybersecurity division of Telefonica, which is own O2. Reach PLC, which is the biggest. They've got a bigger advertising reach than Sky, and they own all of. They own the Express, they own Daily Mirror, Sunday Mirror, they own OK Magazine. They own most of the local newspapers. So you know where you said that you were from. What was your local newspaper? Not in Bath, but where you come from?
Local news, Yorkshire Post.
Yeah, like they own the Yorkshire Post, like Liverpool Echo, you know, Newcastle Chronicle, like some big local titles, and they Reach own them, and they've been a customer of ours. One of our early onboarders, actually, early adopters, MediaCom, talked about. So, right. But we've got some smaller organisations as well. Opus Talent Solutions, they've been absolutely amazing. They've recognised the diversity and inclusion part over the last year. So they've hired 70 people in the last year across 3 continents, in USA, in Europe and Australia. They saved about £250,000 by using our platform on recruitment fees. And also they've seen an upsurge, 35% in BAME, 45-55% split in favour of female applicants coming into their business and working for their organisation. So, you know, the key things that Phoenix does is improve retention. That is one of the key important things. And there's a lot of people, Tom, that don't realise how much money that we waste. We call it talent waste, but how much money businesses waste on hiring the wrong people. I mean, it's incredible. Some of the numbers that I could come out with are eye-watering. And if you're hiring 100, 200, 300 people a year, and only 35% or only 65% of them, 60% are staying, you're basically doing 300, 400, 500 grand a year, wasting money. I mean, it's incredible. So they're some of the companies that we're working with, and some of the case studies we've done so far. And look, it's a work in progress, right? We're only 2 years old. We've been in the startup phase. We're raising money at the moment. We're about to go live on Seeders next week, crowdfunding platform. Right. We're already 69%, 70% against our raise that we want already before we've even gone live. Right, so if there's anyone interested in getting involved, then feel free to give me a shout. But we're in that phase where we're about to start scaling up. That's the phase we're at. So we need the investment to start to scale, and the next kind of 12 to 18 months is all about customer acquisition, scale, scale. So hopefully our business starts to hockey stick. That's the plan.
So what's the long-term vision for Phoenix 51 then?
We think we've had some interest actually already, to be fair, but we're way too early for any sort of acquisition or anything like that at the moment. We'd like to exit at the end of 24. So 2 years and this quarter, so was it 9 quarters before we've got to look at doing that. And we think that will be an event that will either be one of our competitors maybe looking at us to swallow us up, or one of our one of the big RPO clients might acquire us, or maybe private equity. So it'd be an event of some sort. But you know, I'm getting too old. I'm getting too old to build businesses from scratch. I think I want the legacy of Phoenix to be that we are creating a fairer workplace for people around the world. You know, and that's through diversity and inclusion, trying to eradicate unconscious bias, bringing people in, showcasing strengths, weaknesses, and data points on individuals, so we can get hiring right the first time round and actually create a better fairer workplace, and that's the legacy. That's what we want. That's what we stand for. But for us personally, we want to drive that technology to the next level, so we continue to bring on brilliant customers.
No, it's great to see where your long-term vision of Phoenix 51 is actually at, and you know, wish you all the best of success with that and luck. So yeah, and I'm sure it'll be absolutely great. But what advice would you give to other B2B service companies?
Cool, thanks for that, Tom. Bit of advice. There's a couple of bits, right? So firstly, make sure that when you've got an idea that you're trying to get off the ground, don't go and ask your friends and family if it's a good idea. Go and ask people that you don't want to hear the answer from. That's the outside your comfort zone. That's the bit that go and ask somebody that you think they're going to say, this is a pile of rubbish, this is what you should do, because that's the value that you'll get the most from. Like, go and ask your mum and dad. They go, oh, it's great, Tom. Yeah, it's fantastic, Lee. Of course they're going to, because they're your parents. Go and ask people that you're going to get challenged on. That would be my first point. My second point would be create people around you that have got experience of their subject matter. So if it's finance, or if it's sales, or if it's marketing, find people around you, and don't be afraid to be cheeky. Go and ask, go and borrow, go and beg. Don't steal, but go and beg and borrow and ask. And, oh, can you do me a favor? Can you get in here? When you're starting up a business and you've got no cash, people want to see that you're willing to do stuff, putting it in yourself. You know, you got 50 quid in the bank. They want you to see that. They want to see that 50 quid is going into your business. You know, you got 50 grand in the bank. They want to see 50 grand going in the business. Now put that forward. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So creating in people, getting advice. Don't get too many advisors, because it starts to dilute your own thoughts.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be counterproductive. You know where you're going, you know what you want to do, but you want to get good people around you to help you execute what you're doing. You don't want hundreds of advisors around you going, oh, I know what to do. Yeah. No, fine. Can you do it? This is what I need. Can you do it? Not, can you advise me on how to do something? So that would be my second point. My third point would be create solutions to the problem. So make sure that whatever app you're going to do, that any of your viewers and listeners are going to put out, or whatever service you're going to devise, or whatever it is it solving a real life problem? Okay. And if it is, articulate that quickly and get people on board with you on a journey. For those of you, I'm sure you know him because he's a bit of a legend now, but I really like Simon Sinek. And starting with why, and he's moved on, he's done such good stuff. Read all of his books, they're amazing. But you know, even if you start with his 15-minute TED talk on start with why, it really does give you a fundamental understanding of why people buy, because they buy the passion, they buy the why, they want to go on a journey with you, rather than what they buy, and they're buying a pen or they're buying a phone. Like there's hundreds of them to choose from, but there's only one Tom and there's only one Joe. So that would be getting that essence out. Does that make sense? No,
great. And thank you for that advice. On a general overview of your career, what has been the biggest mistake you've made, and what have you learned from making that mistake?
Oh, it's been a few, mate, to be fair. I think the biggest mistake that I made was, and I probably have learned from it, which otherwise it's a bit insane if I haven't, but the biggest mistake that I've made is thinking I could do it on my own. Thinking that I could do that one mindset of, there's a two mindset track here. There's one mindset which is I'm going for it, and this is what I'm gonna achieve this. That's different to thinking you can do it on your own. And I think that there's times in my career that I thought, I can do this on my own. I don't care about anyone else. I'm just gonna do it. And you never get to where you want to be. So it comes back to having good people around you. Be strong-minded as where you want to get to, but realize that you're going to have to take people with you to help you do it.
How do you view mentorship then?
Well, I think, you know, in any given sport, you will have a coach. In every single sport, in every single top elite athlete, regardless of what they do, they will have a coach. If it's football, if it's American football, if it's rugby, cricket, athletics, whatever it is, ballet, you will have a coach. You should have a life coach, 100% in life. You should have a business coach, because these are people that can be sounding boards. These are people that can be, that have been there and done it, can give you a different perspective. Again, for me, that's part of the team, surrounding yourself with good people. That's also that coach. That's also, you know, you might want to call that individual a therapist, you know, whatever. But having them people to coach you through uni, to coach you through sport, to coach you through business, to coach you through life, mentorship, coaching, development. It's all about wanting to learn, isn't it, Tom? At the end of the day, actually, the day you think you've learned it all is the day that you start to go backwards. And I'll give you an analogy for sports fans or football fans that are listening or watching. Hopefully, you guys love the football analogies. But I'm a Spurs fan, right? And I've been for my sins for ages, of course, for like 30 years. But the reality is, the season that we didn't buy anyone for 316 days, or whatever, it was 416 days, we didn't purchase anyone, we started going backwards. So the minute you stop investing, the minute you stop moving forward, the minute you stop learning, is the exact moment that you start retracting, you start going backwards, you start going back down your hill. So if you think you're climbing up Mount Everest, or climbing up to the top of the mountain, and you think you've got it all, you've got it nailed, you're going to start going back down. And that's the bit that is probably one of the hardest things to do. When you're earning good money, you've got good profits, you've got a big office, you've got loads of people in there, you're going, yeah, I've done it, I've made it, I'm in, you know, driving an R8, yeah, look at me, I'm doing it. That's the time when you start being vulnerable to go back down the mountain, and that's really important.
So is it a case of always staying humbled and grounded?
I think it is. I think it is. I think when you look at some of the, not all, but if you look at a lot of the successful people in whatever walk of life that they're in, you know, it is that ability to keep their feet on the ground. Like, you know, you can see it with sports stars. I always use sport as an example, because they're a brilliant example. You know, when the fame and the fortune and the stuff starts to change them, it affects their performances on the pitch, or it affects their performances on the track. It does. So it's the same with business as well. And actually having good people around you to pull you back in. Tom, oh, what are you doing? That could be your mentor, right? Come on, man, what are you doing that for? They're not telling you what to do. They're guiding you. They're giving you a different perspective. Let you figure it out. And that's a good coach.
Yeah, no. And one last question to wrap it up, Lee, because it's been, you know, a great episode. And we've learned so much about it. You've been given so many good snippets of advice and just things that we can take away from it. But is there anything you'd tell your younger self if you had to go back there?
I don't regret the way my early years turned out with the house and with the, you know, with the non-university and all the things we talked about before, because it was my path. That was my path that I went on, to the whole things I talked about. But I do think that if I was telling my younger self something, I would say your drive, your determination, the resilience that has built in you, Lee, just apply that to everything you do, not to certain things, to everything. And if I did that, I would have aced my GCSEs, and I would have been able to have a choice to go to uni or not. I'm not saying I would have gone, but at least I would have had a choice. And actually, just be the best version of the self that you can be, and ultimately that will leave you in good stead. I think that's the advice that I'll give myself.
Well, no, yeah, that's key advice, and definitely something I'll take on board in my journey. But yeah, Lee, thank you very much for hopping on the pod. I think that's a great way to end it. And yeah, it's been so insightful. Absolutely loved it. I hope you have too. Is there anything you'd like to add, or anything final you'd like to say?
No, I'd just like to say thank you. Look, you know, I'm here. You know where I am. If you need anything from us, I know you and Joe are on your journey. And good luck to you. I think you'll absolutely smash it. And look, if you need me, you know where I am.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And if any viewers want to reach out to you, are you available for that? Or
yeah, of course. So I'm on Instagram, Lee.McQueen. I'm on Twitter @Lee McQueen, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. Just search me up, Lee McQueen. There's only one Lee McQueen nowadays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how you get hold of me.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Lee, and I'll plug that down in the description for the viewers to look at. And we wish you all the luck with Phoenix 51.
Thank you so much.
And, hopefully it's successful and achieves your long-term vision. But thank you very much for hopping on the pod. We hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, stay tuned for the next episode.